Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Polly Middlehurst with your 11 o'clock news. And the top story today, the Home Secretary said 300,000 fewer people will be able to come to the UK each year under new plans to bring down legal migration. Overseas workers, he said, and students will be stopped from bringing family and dependents. And the minimum salary required for a skilled worker will rise to £38,700 from next spring. James cleverly says the measures are the best way forward for British taxpayers. But Shadow Environment Secretary Steve Reid says taxpayers have heard it all before.
How many times have we heard a succession of Conservative Home Secretaries stand up in the chamber of the House of Commons and tell us how much they're going to decrease migration by, only to see it soar in the following few months? Now, the figure that James Cleverly is talking about there, even if he manages to cut it by the amount that he's just said, and I doubt that, given their track record, even then, migration would be around double the level that it was in December 2019 when they told us they were going to cut it.
Steve Reid. Now, a British-Israeli teenager has been killed in Gaza while fighting for the Israel Defence Forces. 19-year-old Binyamin Needham died yesterday after only being in the Gaza Strip for 2 days. He was killed in action. The IDF promoted him to the rank of sergeant after his death. And Israeli media said he was born in England but moved to Israel with his family when he was 8 years old. MPs were voting in the House of Commons tonight, and 246 to 242 voted in favour of establishing a new body to help compensate infected blood victims. A cheer rang out as the government was narrowly defeated by just 4 votes to help thousands of people who contracted HIV and hepatitis, having been given contaminated blood products in the 70s and 80s. The Department of Health said it was sympathetic to the strength of feeling on the matter, but weighed up that it wouldn't be right to preempt the findings of the ongoing inquiry into the infected blood scandal. The president of the COP28 climate summit being held in Dubai says he's surprised by reports suggesting that he denied a key aspect of climate science. Sultan Al Jaber was criticised in November after he said there was no scientific basis for limiting a rise in global temperatures to 1.5%. Speaking at the summit earlier, he said his comments were taken out of context in an attempt to undermine the aim of the conference. And lastly, the UK's only giant pandas are on their way to China right now after spending 12 years in Scotland. Edinburgh Zoo's star attractions Yangguang and Qianqian, also known as Sunshine and Sweetie, came to Edinburgh Zoo in 2011. It was hoped they'd breed while they're at the zoo, but they didn't produce a cub, sadly. Visitors were given a final chance to say goodbye to the bears on Thursday. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Always slightly shocked to see my face for the first time up on a screen. This is your first look at Tuesday's newspapers. I'm Simon Evans. Tonight my panel is made up. Well, no, it's not just made up. It does exist. It's the acclaimed comedian Josh Howie.
Feeling pressure now and acclaimed.
Acclaimed. Yeah. I'm not sure by whom.
Someone's acclaimed me. Someone somewhere.
Some sort of Jewish pressure group has probably acclaimed you.
Jeez, it's off tonight. I was nominated for an award once.
Yeah, were you? Which one?
When do I get
for
introduced?
BBC Radio.
You pipe down. Talking to acclaimed Keith.
For my radio sitcom.
That's very good. You know what? I've come second so many times. I've never won an award.
I know.
Is that being acclaimed? Come second?
I think it's fine.
Nick Dixon is getting itchy. He wants.
Well,
to
I mean, it's
say.
just you can't just not introduce a second guest for like 5 minutes.
You're not acclaimed. You know, it's like this is just the way we bring you in.
I'm amazed that you still are alarmed at your own face. You're like that bear that saw itself on a mirror in the woods.
It's just sometimes, I don't know whether it's wearing a red tie, it seems to bring the flush to my cheeks. It's the red background as well.
I'm sure it's the red tie. Not the lunch.
Not the second bottle of port. Anyway, let's have a look at those front pages. The Times. 5-point plan to cut migration. Good luck with that. You see, she gets away with a red background. She doesn't look flushed. The Telegraph. Migrant curbs to cut arrivals by quarter. The Guardian. Sellafield nuclear site hacked by groups linked to Russia and China. The Daily Express. Tougher rules will slash migration by 300,000. Seem to be some disagreement about exactly how many is going to get involved. The iNews, pollute if you want to. Toothless sewage watchdog, there's an image for you to conjure with, fails to visit 90% of toxic spills. And finally, the Daily Star with their boffin news of the day, a nasty case of the asteroids. Those were your front pages. So, starting with Tuesday's Telegraph, Josh, what are they leading with?
Well, before I do the leading, there's a James Bond story there about Hamas traders made millions shorting Israel, which is kind of the plot from Casino Royale, where they were like deliberately doing a terrorist attack on the plane. That's in the movie, and then the idea was they were going to short it.
What a lot of people think happened with Brexit as well. I know somebody who shorted the pound the day before Brexit, made a lot of money, and was consequently ostracised at school. He was a school dad.
But he made a load of money.
They were like, we know you're...
Well, anyway, so these guys, so Hamas seems like they made about $100 million for betting against the Tel Aviv shares, and but I'm sure that they'll get to spend that money. Anyway, and moving on to migrant curbs to cut arrivals by quarter. So this is Cleverly, our new Home Secretary. He's basically going to implement everything that our last Home Secretary was going to do, and supposedly got fired for. Yes, but with the rhetoric slightly toned down. And there are some sensible things here. He's trying to cut the migration by 300,000. One of the things would be that it's going to scrap overseas staff. They can get paid less, 20% less. So it's going to be not for the NHS or care workers, because we need them and we'll collapse without them. Yeah. But for other companies, they'll have to actually start paying British people the money that they should get, you know?
Well, either that, or possibly we could move all the people that require care into, like, just one county and sort of have a separate, like, do you know, like a double border?
Wales?
Yeah, Wales would be a good start, wouldn't it? And then that could be sort of they could have a different set of rules or whatever if you wanted to get into there.
I'm up for it.
They kind of basically tier the country all the way up.
What, according, like, Logan's Run style?
Is that how it was in Logan's Run?
Well, it's just basically anyone over 30, unfortunately,
that thing, but it was just like, it wasn't sort of a series, it wasn't like a heptarchy, was it? I'm talking about Wessex, Sussex, Mercia, you know, and each one has a different set of immigration requirements.
OK, could be the future.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm just spitballing, but I get bored of the same rhetoric from the government all the time.
Well, it seems like they're actually going to do something. They're certainly... People are saying that they're sort of scared of the right wing of the party. Yeah. And they I think the Tories are seeing migration particularly as a way to divide themselves away from Labour. Well, as a correspondent who was Kevin McKenzie was saying on the previous programme, the Reform Party is looking likely to sponge up quite a lot of Conservative votes. What do you think, Nick? Is it too late for them?
Yeah, it's too little too late. I mean, it's another 5-point plan. We've already had one of those. It hasn't even been implemented yet. Yeah. And it's still over... I mean, if you talk about cutting net migration to 300,000. Remember, it was 745,000, so that's still massive, still be over 400k. The visa thing is important. There was this visa scam where you could just get your fifth cousin in and do some dodgy course. That is important. The minimum salary thing is quite minor because it's going up from 26,200 to 38,700. But bear in mind, 26,000 in 2019 is 34,000 today with inflation, basically. So
that is true. There was a woman on Twitter today who was complaining she's got 2 graduate, master's degrees or PhDs or something, and is still not going to be allowed to, still not earning 38k. That, on the one hand, you feel that's harsh, and obviously there's a degree of sympathy for her, but there is this kind of suspicion that some people are just spending too long in college and not just getting out there and earning some money. If you've got two master's degrees, you should be able to earn 38k. Sure.
A degree of sympathy is the only degree she doesn't have.
That's very good. Yes, very good indeed. The Guardian is in your hands.
Smashing it. It would have been even better if I could have done it 3 beats ago. It would have been so good. So the Guardian have gone with Sellafield nuclear site hacked by groups linked to Russia and China. The cowards won't dare come at Cumbria with conventional weapons, so they're using cyber. They would never come at my people just with swords.
And true.
So this is quite dangerous because Sellafield, there's this malware, that's been removed. But it's kind of like Sellafield don't even know what they don't know because there's been a failure to inform nuclear regulators for years. So the extent of data loss is hard to actually know because Sellafield haven't been keeping track of it. That's the accusation, anyway.
Yeah.
And they've been accused of a toxic workplace culture at Sheffield. That's their job, isn't it? I mean, what's wrong with that? So that's
a little pun. But
yeah.
Did you grow up in the shadow of Sellafield?
Yeah, literally and metaphorically. Yeah.
with their drinking water.
No, it's far enough away from it, but it is a big deal in Cumbria. Obviously, it was the only jobs we have.
Show the audience your 6th toe.
How dare you? But there have been consistent cybersecurity issues. However, Sellafield, of course, are denying it. They're saying we have no records or evidence to suggest that Sellafield has been successfully attacked. But then again, the accusation is their record keeping is terrible, so maybe they wouldn't.
I suppose the question is what they might do with it. If the Russians or Chinese just want to know exactly what's going on, that's a little bit worrying. But it's not, it's not the end of the world necessarily. It depends, I suppose, is the question whether or not they could use that information to actually sort of breach security. And
yeah. Well, it's got the world's largest plutonium stockpile.
Yeah.
So it's a serious
the
base.
World's largest.
Yeah.
I thought that was at Disney World.
And there's 11,000 people working there, so there's a lot of in and outs.
And there's also the connection. I assume it's not random. I assume it's not coincidence that there's a large submarine port there as well, isn't there? Barrow as well has a big submarine. Do you know about that?
Yeah, when the sailors.
It's been a long time since I went back. I mean,
well, that's the other thing. If you try and get overnight, Airbnb in Barrow in Furness is like 5 times the price it should be. Given where it is geographically.
How dare you?
90% of your information is from touring around the UK.
Exactly, it is.
Service stations
That's
and
interesting.
Airbnb.
This travel lodge is bucking the trend. What could be explaining that? Anyway, let's move on. The eye, Josh.
Pollute if you want to. Toothless sewage watchdog fails to visit 90% of toxic spills. These are ridiculous water companies that have basically taken billions from this country and not invested it in fixing the system, which is what they're meant to do, reinvesting it. And so it seems like the water watchdog didn't turn up to 90% of toxic spills through the last year, including, and they only went to 35% of the most serious of the incidents. So it's like, what are you doing? It's crazy. And that's actually dropped down since COVID. So, I mean...
So this is the government agency who are required to make sure that the private sector, which is actually running the place, and they're just completely failing to do it.
They're just totally failing. And
is there a suspicion of corruption, or what is it? Laziness?
It doesn't go into why it's happened, but the fact that it seems to, over the last 2 years in particular, become a much more sort of newsworthy item.
Yeah.
A lot of all the campaigners are really on it.
Yeah.
And getting it back into the news consistently.
It's sharky, isn't it? It's the undertones. Is that what he's made the difference.
Well,
and you know why? It's fly fishing.
Is that what it is? I thought it was surfing or whatever. No, it's fly fishing.
That's why he cares, yeah.
Well, there it is. Don't mess with the fly fishermen or women.
No, it's true.
But the fact that it's actually got worse since this campaign has begun is incredible.
Yeah.
With the attention that's gone on it.
Well, you can't help but wonder whether a culture of laziness, whatever you want to call it, just indifference to doing the job has been allowed to develop unremarked. That is human nature, I guess, isn't it? If there aren't enough incentives in the agency to monitor the the profit incentive is obviously there to not do your job properly.
Yeah, I mean, well, when they said that they failed to visit 90% of toxic water spills, you're like, you had one job, is to look at sewage. The other thing I like is it says, including more than 60% of the most serious incidents, I can reveal. And you're like, can you? And that's the great thing about the I paper. That's all I had there.
They have that pad available to them.
I still think if anything should be nationalised or renationalised,
It's
I think it should be the water.
Well, and the rail, frankly.
And the rail, yeah. Anything where you can't have actual...
I mean, I think the whole thing's been a disaster, to be honest.
Because the whole point is you're meant to have competition and they go against, but there's no competition.
Well, you're going to have two taps and you're going to choose...
Yeah, well, exactly, so it doesn't work.
No, absolutely right. Daily Star, finally.
Yes, it's a nasty case of the Asteroids, which I think is a pun on hemorrhoids, but is that it? It's a very, very loose pun.
Yeah.
And it's
don't say a loose pun.
So NASA boffins and boffinesses. Now they've introduced boffinesses because they've really sort of mastered the boffins.
I preferred boffinettes. Is that
well? You can write in. They haven't got much else to do. I'm sure they'll read it. And it's they're saying that 20,000 asteroids could destroy the Earth, and so the boffins and boffinettes and boffinesses are keeping an eye on them. But and non-binary boffins, non-boffins.
They've also gone political again as well. They've put a picture of Rishi Sunak, and they're saying he's even worse than the lettuce.
Worse than the lettuce. So, the 20,000 asteroids sounds like an update of the news story that John Lennon was inspired to write, A Day in the Life. Do you remember that?
No.
6,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire?
Yes.
Now they have to count them all. Now they know how many holes...
It's a Beatles song.
It's a Beatles song. I'm just hip-hop. 90s hip-hop, that's all right. I'm very sorry.
That's it for part one. Coming up in part two, BBC budgets have been hacked. Quantum computing is whack. We will hope it will sort itself out in a couple of minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, still joined by Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. So, Nick, Telegraph have news that might elicit a degree of schadenfreude from a rival station, but do we really want a corner-cutting national broadcaster, I suppose?
Or do we even want one? So, yeah, it's deeper cuts loom at BBC as Sunak prepares to block licence fee increase. It was going to go up from by almost £15 to £173.30 in April. He's saying no. And the BBC have had to broadcast 1,000 fewer hours of new TV shows this year, so that's a good thing, because there's less of their propaganda.
I mean, do you genuinely dislike them as an entity? Would you? I like them. I think it's a good thing for the country as a whole. I'm probably a bit of an outlier at GB News.
I would love them to do their job and be great, and I know people there who work very hard and they try and be impartial, and then they get undermined by idiots like Gary Lineker. I want the BBC to be great, but they're not anymore. They were terrible on Israel. They were obviously biased on Brexit. No one takes BBC Verify seriously. It's an absolute joke.
That's true. Verify has been, I think, a significant misstep.
Disaster. They're completely woke on arts programming.
Yeah.
So if the BBC could have done their job, that would have been great. And it would have been hard because we're in such a polarised time to be truly neutral. It would have been a very difficult task, which they completely failed at. But if they're not going to do it, which they're obviously not, then they can't justify the licence fee.
I saw something on Twitter yesterday, Josh, which a guy called John Elledge, who I think is deputy editor at the New Statesman, something like that, laughing at Darren Grimes of GB News for being annoyed that Doctor Who was being ridiculously woke again, had cast an Indian man as Isaac Newton and was suggesting the Doctor was gay. And Elledge was going, don't you get it? We're enjoying it. We're trolling you. That's the whole point, is to troll. And I was thinking, yes, that is the point. We do understand that. And that is why you are going to lose... the consensus that you need to remain funded.
Instead of focusing on just making good stories. Like the week before, there was all this stuff about non-binary aliens, and it totally lost itself and went up its... because it was like the alien, and then it just broke its own rules. Like, got to respect the pronouns of this alien, and then another alien turns up, and then they totally break that rule and start referring it to as another thing. So all of this stuff, it's when you use...
that's legacy programming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and so it's going up. They're talking about it. If they were to go by inflation, it would go up £15 to 174 quid. That's a lot of money. And I think that the other thing is now, the reason why people can start seeing the end of this model financing for the BBC is because a lot of us have subscription services. So we'll pay Disney, Netflix or whatever, the thing is, we have a choice with those, and if they start putting out rubbish programs like Netflix has done recently, or they go super duper woke in their programming, you go, you know what, I'm going to cut it off. And we don't have that option here.
We don't, and I mean, a few years ago I would have defended it for various reasons, such as it's great there's no advertising because that limits how much advertising but now we all watch it on catch up anyway, and you just fast forward through the advertising, don't you?
Then you've got the internal culture. I mean, you had that guy saying that white people caused him mental health problems. You can just be overtly racist and face no penalty, and we have to pay for that.
How much of this money are they spending on Stonewall and diversity schemes? And as Nick says, are we getting value for money? Now, I've come in here when I started GB News, very, very pro-BBC. I've worked for the BBC, and in many ways it is a wonderful organisation, but they are not doing their job. When was the last great comedy show that came out?
It was yours.
Yeah, mine. That was the last time.
But Josh,
the last one.
It's almost as if you change your opinion based on who's employing you.
It totally is. I love being at GB News.
Guardian now, George.
BBC.
And Keir Starmer is getting all excited about that time Jim fixed it for him to sit in the cockpit.
Yeah, so public spending is not the only lever Labour can pull, says Starmer. So essentially, if and when they come into power, he's basically saying our finances are all messed up. But money is not the only way that they can make improvements, and one of them is to make sure that we get good value for money out of our institutions and whatnot, and that makes total sense.
Is that not always what I mean, I understand the choice, but that's what they always say, isn't it? When they're coming in, there'll be productivity.
I think that he said, but this is the first time Labour's sort of really focusing on that element of things. Labour normally will come and say, bring us in, we're going to spend this much more on the NHS, this much more on education. And those things are needed in terms of inflation and the increase of population and whatnot. It's not they don't need more money, but he's also being honest and saying, we're not going to just magically have all of this money. And so we also need to make sure that we improve these organisations, which arguably could do with some improvement.
They certainly could, and I think it's embarrassing for the Tories that Labour is plausibly saying we're going to come in and one thing we're going to do is overhaul the planning laws, which will improve the efficiency and the productivity of the country. Well, that is something that should be... That
should have been done 13 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. Nick.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because he was praising Thatcher the other day. Now he's saying growth is everything. Now he sounds like Liz Truss now.
Yeah.
He's moved on to the Thatcher imitators. And, yeah, I mean, he's trying to be all things to all people. But it's quite strange for Labour to be talking about austerity and being against spending. But isn't he just priming people for the realistic factor that we don't have money and the country is struggling?
But I think that's an admirable quality.
Yeah, I mean, we have huge debt, and the interest rates on it have gone up, and that is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, but he can say anything at this point, can't he, Starmer? And you seem to even like some. I'm kind of surprised though, because he's not going to do any policies you like or want.
Well, I think I think let's just get him in and let's see.
I think, to be honest, even if you're... and I am probably, you know, in my heart of hearts, there are certain kinds of Tory government that I don't particularly like this one, but broadly speaking, I would probably be a natural Tory voter. I think they desperately need a period in opposition to sort themselves out.
Yeah, it's just that Labour are going to be so bad that it's just going to get... But it's all right, because then Farage comes in 2029.
But I remember that before Tony Blair came in, and everyone said Labour was going to be so bad and people...
And it was awful, destroyed the country.
No, it wasn't. We had a golden era.
Got better. I'm sure you remember the tune, Nick. Football news now in the Daily Mail. And the world's richest league just got richer.
Yeah, Premier League announced new £6.7 billion UK TV rights package with Amazon completely shut out and every match outside of the Saturday 3 p.m. blackout shown live. I don't really understand the 3 p.m. blackout. It's a bit communist, isn't it? I mean, you want people to go to the actual games maybe, but
what is a 3 p.m. blackout? I don't even know what it
You don't show any of the game. If the game's on at 3 p.m. on Saturday, no one's allowed to show it on telly.
When? Till when?
Later than night. Well, they don't ever show the full game. They show highlights later.
Yeah.
But I've never really understood any of this because so Amazon have shut out of it because they got a discount when they originally got it. Apparently they're struggling for a few quid. They don't want to pay you the full price, so they're not going to have any of it.
Threw that money away on the rings of power.
That was it. TNT, which is what BT were called, and I've just stopped getting annoyingly, are going to have 52 matches. Sky's going to have 215.
Sorry, TNT is what
BT Sport was.
Okay,
yeah?
right, didn't it?
But yeah, we're here to teach. But you know what I don't get is you're trying to get a game, and like Australia and America always seem to be able to have it, and some people you try and stream it from there, not me, but some people. And so you go, why can't we just have every game and stop all this nonsense?
Well,
of
the 3 p.m. blackout, as you say, is to encourage fans to go to the matches, even though match day revenue is not significant compared to Sky revenue, right?
I assume that's what it's for. I haven't really checked.
Without fans there, the matches look a bit rubbish, right?
That's true as well. We found out in COVID it was awful without fans.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what someone will be annoyed at home because I haven't bothered checking what the point of it was actually. But there is a 3 p.m. blackout. I just think we should have every game on telly. Why not at this point?
They should be quite easy for you to watch it on telly and there to be a little camera on your telly which maps your face and then attaches it to an artificial resemblance of you on the terraces, singing along and cheering and stuff. So the stadium is full of people who are actually watching at home on TV.
I went to my first ever football match the other day.
Wow!
And I took my son.
Like the Premier League?
Yeah, Premier League, Spurs and Chelsea. It was pretty amazing. Like an amazing stadium and whatever.
It's a big old grudge match as well. Which one? At Spurs.
This was at Spurs. But the interesting thing is they don't do replays live.
No.
Like, so when you're watching the match, everybody has their phones out.
Yeah.
Where anytime someone scores a goal or a foul, and then everybody's looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And then they're looking. It's.
I mean, years ago, I used to go to see Chelsea in the 90s, just after Italia 90 revived all the middle class interest in football. You know, Lineker's side and Gaza, you know, crying and all that. And even then, there was no smartphones, of course. People had their
radios.
Radios with an earpiece. You'd have one ear with a single earpiece, and you'd be listening to the crowd on the, you know, and everyone. And part of it was to know what was happening in the other matches, of course, because towards the end of the season, that became equally important.
I used to go in the 90s, and people just watched the game manually. They just were watching it with no equipment, no technology.
They have beers that filled from the bottom. Because this stadium has a beer that fills from the bottom. It was incredible.
No,
it takes 2 seconds. It's amazing. Go football.
Fantastic. That's like the way that Nespresso...
Yeah, it comes from... It's amazing.
Quantum computing in The Guardian now, Josh. I know our viewers will be trusting you to explain the implications of this cutting-edge technology.
Where's Stephen Allen when you need him? IBM unveils... I can't even... How am I going to talk about quantum computing? I can't even say unveil.
I doubt that
it's very boring.
IBM, unveils new quantum computing chip to explore new frontiers of science. The gist of it is that instead of having like ones and zeros in a silicon-based thing. Now they're going to be using subatomic particles that can be a 1 and a 0 at the same time.
That's right, superimposition.
There we go, like Schrodinger's cat type vibe.
Struggler's cat.
Yeah, but it's going to exponentially increase what computers can do to solve issues that would take today's supercomputers forever. Even if you link them up, we'll be able to do it in a few minutes. It's that next level, because there's that idea of miniaturization that's happened over the last 56 years, where it's like every time the technology, every year the technology gets halved in size and doubled. Moore's law doubled in power. This is gonna, but it did get to a point then with silicon chips where it just couldn't be miniaturized anymore.
No.
And now this is the next level.
Yeah, so it got to that point where, like, the hippies writing Esmeralda on a grain of rice.
Yeah,
There's a limit to how small you can get. I suppose my fear, possibly yours, Nick, is that there's a certain kind of person who would like to see computers just take over altogether.
Me.
Who's that kind of person? What, the Ray Kurzweil types?
Well, or
you want to download themselves.
Who, for instance, would say, let's tell it all the details that we know, all the data we've gathered about climate change, for instance, and then let it make decisions. You know, there's this kind of sense that computers are getting so extraordinarily powerful now that it would be impertinent of humans to have any kind of try and have any input.
Well, I'm hoping
transhumanism. Are you talking about?
Yeah, and also just making big decisions. You know, what should we do?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, we should have like an AI CEO and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
An AI president and all that business.
I mean, it doesn't need to be AI. It can be just regular computing. I don't know what the difference is.
Well, I think that hopefully they'll be able to do AI art where the humans don't have 6 fingers.
Oh no,
that's the next step.
They're so close to that now, and that is just going to eliminate everything. Right, that's it. Part 2 is done. Coming up, a missed opportunity to invade Europe and other ways to make the army more manly. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Bye now.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new
It's your new t-shirt.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners. So, Nick, the Times have news that Boris Johnson was planning to be even more Churchillian during the lockdown than we had realised.
That's the exact thing I thought. Yeah, Boris Johnson plotted military raid on Dutch COVID plant. Yeah, I thought of Churchill sinking those French ships like a bold move that you wouldn't expect.
Oh, I've forgotten that.
What it was, in March 21, Johnson asked security service officials to look at military options because the EU weren't giving up these jab doses that we needed. And he's like, well, can we just invade Holland or something? I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
But they were ours, right? We had a legal right to do them.
It's just they weren't giving them, you know, the kind of thing the EU do. And it's a pity he didn't do it, because this is the Boris we all would want to see, the bold Boris. But he wanted to at least discuss it. It didn't come up in the end, and we didn't need to do it. And he's expected to talk about this and give evidence. Basically, it vowed to ensure 9 priority groups, including all over 50s, were vaccinated by mid-April, but they were worried this wasn't going to happen, and so that's what it was about. And Johnson backed down after being warned that it would be seriously detrimental to diplomatic relations. I love that sentence. What do you think?
We do have a history, of course, with the Dutch, which we don't discuss as much in historical terms. Obviously, like 99% of our military mythology is based on the Second World War and then the First World War as well with the Germans. But the Armada, which came from Spain, which is our other great mythical naval battle and success and victory, they came via the coast of Holland. That was essentially a Dutch-Spanish.
Yeah. Okay.
So we actually could have it would be the spirit of Drake and Elizabeth and Raleigh that we'd be.
He was framing it as revenge for the Armada, it says here.
Does it?
No.
I would have liked to have seen him try that. Do you know which British TV presenter was mentioned in dispatches for conducting a daylight raid, piloting bombers over The Hague to try and destroy a V2 factory? Daylight as well.
I got confused halfway through that sentence. I didn't know what you said.
A British television presenter, now dead,
David
obviously, was mentioned in dispatches. I think possibly got the DSO in even for taking part in a daylight raid over The Hague.
Who was it?
Raymond Baxter.
Okay.
Presenter of Tomorrow's World.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember him?
It's more like Radio 4 content, that.
Subscription model. I love Raymond Baxter. He's my go-to. They don't make him like that anymore. TV presenter. What do you think, Josh? Should we have invaded Holland?
Well, yeah, why not? But I like it how. So next week, is it next week that he's going to be sitting down for a couple of days and have his time in the COVID inquiry son of Boris Johnson, where he's going to argue that the 3 lockdowns came at the right time and they saved tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. I'd like to see the mathematical modelling on that.
He's also going to say that he had a basic confidence that things would turn out all right. Isn't that just pure Boris? That's what he always has.
For him.
Turned out to be not enough to lead the
but
country.
we're looking forward to him joining GB News.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Phew.
I forgot.
Still haven't seen him in the corridors yet. Guardian now, Josh Beards may be back in the army, though with liberal attitudes to homosexuality, they hardly seem necessary now.
Oh, is that what it was all about? I didn't know that was the history
beard,
behind.
You know what a beard is, don't you?
Yes, sorry.
It's a beard joke.
It's my friend of...
All 3 of us have got it here.
We've got our beards.
Do you not know the beard?
Yeah, it's a beard. Yeah. You have it because you want to pretend you're straight because you're in Hollywood or something.
Yeah.
And you have a... And it's
why
like Will Smith's wife, allegedly.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Wow, we're going to get so...
Allegedly. I said allegedly. That's like magic, isn't it? I work with Will.
But why would you call a beard
Will.
female? Do you know what I mean?
Weird. Well, it's just something that men wear in order to demonstrate that they're masculine. I mean, it's pure coincidence that the 3 of us are sitting here. But anyway.
Yeah. British Army may lift... God, it's the may lift. I didn't even read the may. They haven't even lifted. May lift beards ban after 300+ years. So I'll be signing up, obviously. I didn't even know that they had a big beard ban. But then, obviously, they're famous for the moustaches. Yeah. And actually, you had to have a moustache for many years as well. Like, that was like part of it up until like 1916.
Well, it's quite a strict protocol.
Yeah, you had to have the moustache, but you weren't allowed the full beard. RAF have had beards, those wimps, for a while, since 2019.
This is why I picture the Sean Connery and the Man Who Would Be King, sort of the bare chin, but everything else.
But if you're SAS, you're allowed a beard. Right. And I guess that's one of the privileges because you're that much more masculine than everybody else.
Well, that's because they sleep rough and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they're this desperate for people, why don't they just stop discriminating against white men, firstly, which the RAF have been doing? I mean, I know they lifted the beard thing in 2019. Secondly, it used to be, as you said, they used to have beards. There were photographs of soldiers in the Crimean War with beards to hide a badger in, because because you had fighting badgers in those days, and they used to smuggle them in by the beard. This is just a quote. They're saying that the beard was very long, is the point.
A beard to hide a badger in.
Yes.
It's quite a nice, like a phonetic. I like this sort of flow of it, yeah.
It has to be the right colour, though, wouldn't it? They'd all have to have grey beards for that to work. Black, grey beards.
Funny enough, the one man I know has the full badger beard is a Jewish friend of mine. I think it's possibly... It looks slightly rabbinical. It has that kind of... It looks, you know, like an elder.
Does it have a badger in it?
2 white stripes either side with the central black. It's quite a cool look. Yeah, I can't pull it off. Well, you could use blacking, of course. You know Steve First?
Yes, I know Steve, yeah.
Yeah, he blacks his beard up now. Before
I do. I did this.
Is it really?
Yeah, I did it.
Do you think I should dye mine? Do you think it would take years off?
It will absolutely take years off. If you want to, but it suits you because it gives you that authority.
But yours is quite... I had never even guessed that yours...
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets pretty white, and then I just go, oh, forget.
This has been a hinge moment in my life. I never saw this.
Right in to see if Simon should dye his beard.
I know Nick's been very quiet over that.
I was just feeling for the viewer, really. But anyway.
Telegraph now, Nick. A story of a language barrier leading to somewhat less amusing outcome, sadly.
Yes. This is woman 91 died after foreign care staff could not explain her condition to 999. And this is a kind of Venn diagram of our broken country. It's immigration, education, and caring for the elderly all at once. So Barbara Rymel died after falling at the Ashley House residential home in Langport, Somerset, and she was stuck under a stair lift, but people couldn't explain the difference between alive and alert or breathing and bleeding because they didn't have sufficient English, and the case was classified as serious rather than requiring immediate response because they couldn't, as they said, it was virtually impossible to gather from the call what was going on. But she was someone who had blurred vision and a high risk of falling, and it's just shocking. It's just absolutely broken Britain story, and this tragedy. When people get old, they're looked after by people who don't really care about them, and now it turns out actually can't even help them because they can't speak English.
Well, it is horrific. You're meant to be able to speak. You're meant to have passed this English test to be able to work in these kind of jobs. One of the carers hadn't, but. Obviously, it's very sad. The thing that's incredible to me is that the person who on the other end of the line who wasn't understanding what was going on, why they didn't just make it the super urgent rather than the serious anyway. If they, rather just to be safe.
On the safe
side.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also just maybe pick up on the alarm in the voice. You would think at least somebody would be...
Maybe there was no alarm because they weren't that bothered. I don't know.
It's very sad. This person was 91 years old. That's not how you think that... That's what you're going to happen. That's what the family obviously puts the mum into a home. But the other thing is that, and we keep on going back to this, I'm sorry to be a bit boring about it, but we're bringing in the workers and paying them not very much money or paying them less than we pay British workers because we don't want to have these people in our home or pay the money that they should get.
We're trying to offload any kind of moral kind of burden that we might feel.
You get what you pay for. I'm sorry to say, that's sad. But
I mean, the care home, the paucity of care home workers, the bad staff, the bad conditions. It's a staple of British documentaries as long as I've been an adult, I think, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's every couple of years, Panorama or something will do one, and you go and go, oh my.
I mean, Indians have it right. They have the family. They stay. The kid. I'm telling my kids they better be wiping my arse.
There's a very interesting book by a man called Atul Gawande called Being Mortal.
It's a brilliant book,
but he says it's not all roses either
I'm
in
sure
India.
it's not.
Anyway, Nick, Telegraph, a story... No, sorry, that's the one we've just done. I apologise. That's shed some daylight in on magic. That is part 3 over and done with. Coming up shortly, we have the word of the year, the way to survive Armageddon, and the hidden dangers of sprouts. See you in a couple of minutes.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners, kicking off now with the Mirror and developments from the jungle. Who has been kicked out, Josh?
Nella Rose, someone I hadn't heard of 2 weeks ago, and maybe we'll never say her name again.
I'd never heard of her either. I watched a few of the
She's
clips.
a YouTube lady, and she got into an argument with Nigel Farage, who obviously works at the channel, and people are surprised because she was going to be the big star, supposedly.
But the mechanism for kicking people out, and I mean, I don't want to go down too deep a rabbit hole, but essentially it's a negative one, right? So you vote for people who want to stay in. So it's the people. It's not so much that everyone went, "Oh, we hate Nella."
Yeah, she just received the least votes.
Yeah, it's almost like indifference is what gets rid of you. So the way they frame it as if she's been.
But I think she's had these incidents that have had Ofcom complaints made about her, right? Where she attacked that, is he French or Belgian? That guy about the dad
chef,
thing, and then she had an argument with Nigel. So I think some people weren't warm to her and sort of saw her as a classic sort of
Any indication as to whether Nigel is likely to win at this point?
I don't know. There's a I read a conspiracy theory last week that they weren't showing him much. Like there's this idea that they don't want him to become popular, so they're not featuring that much of him.
Is that a conspiracy? I think it's ITV getting worried that he's getting too much bad press. All these people saying, "Oh, they shouldn't have done this and shown Nigel." Now they're trying to cover themselves.
I don't know how they can really
believe
cover
it.
themselves.
I tried to watch it.
It wouldn't be a conspiracy to say a TV company make decisions about.
No, it wouldn't. It'd be just how they operate. But I tried to watch it just to support our esteemed colleague, but it's so awful as a show. I got through about 20 minutes. It's so bad, and I can't stand to watch people eat bugs, which is pretty much the entire show. And but I did see the clip of this Nella, when that Fred guy, who's also annoying but not quite as bad as her, said, "I'm old enough to be your father," and she took it as a mortal insult because her father died, which of course he didn't mean. She revealed herself as one of the most awful possible people. The only thing I like about the show, it makes bug eating look bad, because the WEF's been trying to make it look great. Oh, eat the bugs and be happy. Whereas this makes it look absolutely awful. That's the only thing I like.
I think the WF
it seems anti-bug.
I'm hoping the WF are going to cook them.
They'll grind them up. They'll make them look like burgers.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah.
But at first they will.
Telegraph now, Josh. And Oxford's word of the year continues in the recent tradition of being trite, dispiriting, lacklustre, underwhelming and largely redundant.
Very good. Riz crowned Oxford's word of the year. It's from charisma. So the idea is it's Riz, like this person has Riz, it's they've got some skills with the ladies or gentlemen or they, thems. It means like you're pulling power to your style, your ability
so charisma is reduced to Riz. Okay.
That's the gist
of it. I thought it was more like a rizzle razzle dazzle.
I thought it was a Rizzler.
Yeah.
Like if you.
Charisma is
You
a
guys
very
are such
interesting
boomers.
word.
It's charisma, but
it's a word
Riz.
that people often
I know
reach
it.
for when they find somebody sexually attractive, but they don't want to admit it.
What, charisma?
Charisma, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that how you feel about Boris Johnson?
Yeah, for instance, yeah. Well, it's how a lot of people obviously do, because he seems to be extraordinarily successful. But, yeah, so is that OK? But I still don't... It's not a real word, is it? It's an abbreviation.
Well, Oxford Dictionary is now saying it's a real word, I guess.
Yeah.
Swiftie, what's a Swiftie, Nick? You know what Swift is? Taylor Swift? Didn't know that.
Taylor Swift. Yeah, I knew
that. And situationship. Now, I never heard of that one
yeah,
before.
I know about
What's a situationship?
It's where it's not a proper relationship. You're kind of talking to someone and it's not serious.
Like friends with benefits.
But
you're speaking like a married person who's been married a long, long time. Everything's a situationship now. That's all there is.
A lot of them come off social media. Last time, a goblin mode. That was just people who are being not seeking to hide their bad mood.
No, it's just you go full... That's more like you go beast mode, isn't it?
Oh, is it beast
mode? No, you just stay at home and you don't do anything, I think.
Slouchy kind of leisure wear.
We're so hip. We're so hip, guys.
Anyway, I'm warmer towards
hip's the new word.
Now I know it's come
year.
from charisma. I think it originally meant invested with the power of God in order to, you know, like a kind of...
Oh, really?
faith in
Charisma,
thing,
well, there we go.
Nick, much more usefully, the public is being told to prepare for inevitable complete failure, power breakdown, societal collapse, get some camping stoves in.
Yeah, stock up on Riz. Oh, sorry, I mean stock up on battery devices in case of grid meltdown, Britain's told. And this came from Oliver Dowden, who is the Deputy Prime Minister, who's saying, basically, we're going to have a lot of power cuts because our culture is declining, our society and country are going downhill, so better to just crack out the candles and torch. So but it's like the 70s again, and they're citing all the usual things, climate, of course, cyber attacks, terror attacks, flooding. So there's all these reasons you might have to have a torch and a candle.
Sellafield computer systems
Exactly.
down.
Of course, I do have a torch. I've just moved house and everything's everywhere, but I realise I do have a torch. I keep Simon bed, and I've got canned food to last long, and I've got weapons, so I'll be okay.
What's your weapon?
No, I made that up. But well,
you need a head torch. That's the key thing. We all have those in the house.
When you need to be very, very alone.
When the Deputy Prime Minister starts saying to you, guys, maybe stock up on essentials.
You feel like he might have some info.
Get some baked beans in.
Maybe around April 17th. Why do you know the date?
No, it's not looking good.
We all have electric blankets now that we use on the sofa, though. Do you have those?
No. We all?
No.
Yeah.
What do you mean we all? We don't. So we're all under 60.
I have children. I use my children as my blankets.
That's good too. And the dog. The dog gets fed up. Pass me the dog. Bad news in the Times now, Josh, for anyone who fancied a little treat to help them get through the disaster prepping.
I know. Hold the crisp. Snacks can make you more stressed. So it turns out when you have high-fat foods, because you're stressed out and you want some comfort eating, it actually restricts your arteries rather than loosening. So instead of... So it actually tenses you up, which is, of course, having the opposite effect. So instead it says apples and various... what were the good things that you could have? Basically, an apple was what we were allowed. You can eat an apple.
Massages berries, are still good, right?
I think, if you can get someone to do that.
Massage.
Berries, grapes, tea, cocoa. But eating high-fat foods, and they tested a bunch of people with... they gave them, like, high-fatty croissants, and it made it actually much worse.
Even immediately? Not just
immediately
long-term
and lasted.
arteries,
long-term, but for a 2-hour effect of stressing them up.
Well, that is bad, isn't it? You expect to get a couple more hours out of it than that. Do you do any of that sort of thing? Nick, you're much more sort of zen and calm.
Do I eat croissants and test myself?
At all?
Or chocolate?
Are you the most un-zen person?
Well, it's because I get on with Simon. That was unnecessarily harsh, but it made him laugh. So watch your blood vessels there, Simon, because it was a sharp and potentially harmful drop.
Traditionally do all this, though, is nicotine, of course. Just unfortunate. It is unavoidably, the carcinogen.
You're still smoking your pipe.
Alcohol as well is good, but just not drinking too much. That's the trick.
I remember one of my favourite cartoons in Punch magazine was a doctor saying to a patient, "Have you tried drink?"
Another idea is just eat croissants and crisps and don't read this article.
Let's get this last one in before we go to the titles. It's another good reason to hate Christmas, Nick.
Oh, really? I thought we'd go with the much funnier Scottish nicknames of gritters. This one's awful. This is just cooking Christmas dinner, open the windows. Indoor pollution in homes is higher on Christmas Day than any other day of the year. Or just don't go to your family's house. It's basically open. I mean, it's a non-story, okay?
What was the one you wanted to do then? Do it very quickly.
Well, it was just about Scottish gritters, and they called things like Sir David Attenborough and Robert Burns
Fleetwood
and Freddie Van Halen. Grindstone Ploughboy, like a grindstone
The saddest thing is someone said this is the best part about winter in Scotland is the live gritter tracker.
Yes.
Don't go to Scotland. Don't move to Scotland. That's terrifying.
I do think native good humour is to be celebrated, even if it shouldn't necessarily be leveraged by municipal authorities to try and win the hearts and minds of their people.
That's what they're doing, is it? The SNP.
Greta Thunberg. That's another one.
Greta Thunberg, that'll do. Show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. The Times have a 5-point plan to cut migration. I still don't know who that is in the picture. The Telegraph, migrant curbs to cut arrivals by quarter. The Guardian, Sellafield nuclear site hacked by groups linked to Russia and China. That might be Wham, it mightn't it? They play China. Daily Express, tougher rules will slash migration by 300,000. Dream on. iNews, pollute if you want to. Toothless sewage watchdog fails to visit 90% of toxic spills, and the Daily Star, a nasty case of asteroids. Those were your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thanks to my guests, Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. Leo Kirst will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Josh and Steve N. Allen. And I'll see you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's been a bit of a grim day for many parts of the UK. The rain eases over the next 24 hours, only gradually, however, and then clearer and colder weather returns to the UK, albeit briefly, before further areas of low pressure come our way later this week. So the first area of low pressure is clearing. It's clearing to the southeast. Wrapped around it, a number of occluded fronts. That means bands of rain continuing for southern Scotland, northern England, into the Midlands, parts of Wales and the southwest, also seeing a number of showers overnight. But the more persistent rain is gradually easing. Northern Scotland, meanwhile, sees quite low temperatures overnight. Temperatures down to -5 Celsius in places, and with some showers feeding in overnight as well. There'll be a few slippery surfaces first thing on Tuesday to watch out for. But that's where the brightest weather will be, and that brighter weather will spread into southern Scotland, much of Northern Ireland, western England and Wales by the afternoon. Central and eastern England still subject to outbreaks of rain or showers even into the afternoon, and staying cool here with the breeze from the North Sea. But then the rain clears widely and an overnight frost returns to many places by the start of Wednesday. Some freezing fog patches as well, but actually it's a bright day for many in the east, with wetter weather returning by the afternoon into the west. That wet weather turns to snow over northern hills overnight, but milder conditions return to all later.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround?